Hey guys, me again. We're going to take this a step further, and we're going to look into measuring end-tidal CO2 specifically for perfusion, and we're going to expand on the learning that we've already done. So we've already talked about the Q side of it. Heart rate times stroke volume equals cardiac output. We've already talked about how we want a VQ match, and V is all about ventilation. Respiratory rate times tidal volume equals minute ventilation, okay? And we've talked about how we want these to be roughly the same. Take the dead space out for your minute ventilation, and that's going to be where you get your alveolar gas exchange, okay? So when we're looking at these here, okay, when we're looking at these measurements, when we're talking about ventilation, okay, one of the things that we're looking at when we're measuring ventilation is your PCO2 and your end-tidal CO2. Okay, these should be pretty much the same. They should be exactly the same, unless you have some major issue where you're not able to diffuse that gas back into the lung. And we usually pick up on that really quickly. So an easy way to do this is if you're getting an ABG, you're going to get a PCO2, and have that end tidal on the patient at the same exact time that you're getting your ABG, and see that they're plus or minus 2. Within each other. And that normal range, we all know, right, is supposed to be 35 to 45. 40 would be perfect right in the middle. That's where we want our CO2. Okay, so hopefully all that makes sense so far. Not really all that complicated, but what we're going to do is we're going to talk about VQ matching and what end tidal can tell us, especially about perfusion in this issue, or perfusion on this topic here. Okay, so 70 times 70 equals 5 liters per minute. 12 times 500 equals 6 liters per minute. That's a pretty decent match, okay? Your patient goes into cardiac arrest, and what happens? Well, they go to zero, and they have a cardiac output of 0. They go to 0 respiratory rate, 0 volume, 0, okay? So normally we said that our end tidal should be 35 to 45, right? And in the last topic, we talked about what happens when you start to get acidotic. Well, when you're in cardiac arrest, you're about as acidotic as it gets. No blood's flowing, no oxygen's coming in, right? So what am I building up there? I'm building up lactate, okay? Lactate is a problem. Lactic acidosis is difficult to reverse. You guys have all walked into a room where the entire staff is having a bad day. It's very negative in there. It is hard to turn that entire room around. Okay, so that's negative. When we talk about that, that is a negative. That is an anaerobic cellular respiratory environment, cellular respiration at the anaerobic level. Basically, there's no oxygen there. People are miserable, and it's hard to reverse. The easier way to fix this is to keep the patient from producing too much lactate by staying in front of them so they don't develop this profound acidosis. Okay, so the goal would be that I want to maintain, okay, a VQ match the entire time. All right, so I'm going to come along and I'm going to start doing compressions at 100. I'm going to get my 10 mLs, which is about 20% of normal blood flow. Okay, and then what we're going to end up with here is 1 liter per minute, and that's about 20% of normal blood flow. If 100% of normal blood flow is 5 liters per minute, okay, then 20% would be 1 liter per minute. Simple enough. That's just easy math, okay? So, looking at that, important to understand, okay? And for those of you that have taken my classes before, you've probably seen this a million times. For those that have not, this is an easy way to remember it, okay? When we talk about patients developing lactate, what does it mean? It means that their O2 level is down. They're not getting O2 to where they need to get it to, which means that they start to create lactate. Okay, and lactate means that there is no O2. Basically, it's an anaerobe, okay, anaerobic environment. I didn't spell that right. Anyways, okay, so you've got A and you've got B. Here are 2 blueberries on the shelf at your local supermarket, okay? This blueberry right here has mold on it. Which one are you going to take? And everybody here is going to take A. Why is that? Because we know that this one moldy blueberry often indicates that there's what? There's mold under here, okay? And there's mold under here. What do we know about mold? Mold is a spore, so it's an anaerobe. It doesn't require oxygen to grow. So instead of looking at these as if they are packages of blueberries, okay, let's look at them as if they are cells. Because when we talk about shock, what are we talking about? We start with cellular shock, moves on to tissues, progressive, okay, and then it moves on to irreversible shock. So what do we have when we have one moldy blueberry? We have cellular shock. What do we have when we have 10 moldy blueberries? We have progression. We have tissue involved now. We've gone from cellular shock to tissue. What's going to happen to this entire thing eventually if you bring it home instead of this nice, pristine, clean one? Well, the whole thing is going to fail, and that's irreversible shock. And when we talk about irreversible shock, what we're talking about is we're talking about an organ that doesn't come back to baseline. One of your organs fail. It's that simple. Okay? So key concept to understand here is we want to prevent that from happening. All right? So back to end-tidal CO2. Why is it so important when we're talking about perfusion? Because we said that the normal is supposed to be 35 to 45. Okay? That's a key concept. I'm going to talk about this real quickly. HCO3, what is that? That is our base. We all have it. Okay? When we talk about this, we talk about bicarb. All right, if you are getting oxygen into the blueberry, if you're getting oxygen into the cell, then what is it going to do? It makes an extra hydrogen molecule. Okay, it's that simple. That's all that it does. Well, if I get one extra hydrogen molecule to attach here, basically what I end up with is H2CO3. Simple chemical reaction. If I add something to this end, what do I do over here? I break something off. I break off one of those O's. What does that leave me with? H2O, H2O. And what's left? CO, well, this isn't a 3 anymore, it's a 2. CO2. Which one of those is easy to measure in your shock patient? Well, this one here, if you have an acute kidney injury, AKI, you may never make urine again. This one right here, the very first time you let go of the bag and the patient breathes out through the circuit, this gets measured, okay? So super important to understand. So when we talk about doing CPR, we talk about moving 20% of normal blood flow. The magic number for the end-tidal needs to be greater than or equal to 10 when we're running a code. That tells us everything that we need to know about the quality of compressions. Why is that? Well, real simple. If you take all of this into account and you look at how much blood flow you're moving, okay, then all we have to do is consider what the normal end-tidal is versus what 20% end-tidal would be. So, normal end-tidal is 35 to 45. 3.5 to 4.5 would be what? That's 10%. Double it for 20% and you have 7 to 9 on the end-tidal CO2. What's our goal? Greater than 10. Why is our goal greater than 10? Because we want to do better than average CPR. Okay? So that means that when I see 10 on the waveform and it goes to 20 and it goes to 30, it means that we're going to get a ROSC. Why is that? Because my cardiac output is improving, and that is a super important concept to understand. If you don't get it, inbox me. I'm happy to talk about it. Thanks for your time.